Today, it's Edwin's Monday evening property rant. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics, well-noticed post covering finance and property news. It's Monday evening yet again, and of course Edwin is back for another chat. And Edwin, I gather you're a bit chilly this evening.
Yeah, it was a bit of a cold front came through, caught me by surprise, Martin. Running around in a t-shirt, and then all of a sudden it got cold. But look, the most surprising thing is that you haven't been locked up for all the stuff you've been saying on your podcast.
Still here, still here. The number of people locked up is ticking up quite significantly. I've still got more cases. But anyway, I will keep spraying the truth around and just rolling with it. And talking about truth and surprises, and can you believe it that the US is now going to adopt the same strategy that John Howard did all those years ago? Let's throw money at first-time buyers. Magic, isn't it?
Well, that's the thing, Martin. Look, we certainly left an impact in the Paris Olympics, right? In more ways than we can imagine. I mean, apart from the medal count, and all the as I said, I won't go into too much detail as to what other types of impact we left there in Paris, but look, now I think it's been impactful, the fact that and we're certainly are leading the charge when it comes to fixing the housing crisis. But it must be really working here in Australia, Martin, and it's got nothing to do with propping up the home prices for developers and builders, right? It's got nothing to do with that. It's got nothing to do with buying votes. It's got all to do with helping the young families get into the property market and assisting them to buy, even the established homes where the people that own the established homes that are going to be putting them on the market, they're not going to raise the price for at least $30,000-$40,000 more, although the grant's only $25,000. It's got nothing to do with that. It's really to help those that don't have get into the property ladder and get on the first run. That's how Dusty sees it. But at the same time, Dusty wants to tell our followers and our viewers that she's got a shiny new bridge. Not new, it's just been repainted, over the harbour for sale, if anyone's interested.
Well, it is fascinating, of course, because all the studies that have been done on first home owner grants, the Productivity Commission did a really big study a couple of years ago, and they all underscored that it made no economic sense in terms of actually dealing with housing affordability. All it did was allow a few people to get under the gate, as it were, to be able to afford to buy. It lifted property prices by the amount of the grants that were actually put there. Look at Western Australia and through the COVID cycle with the Home Builder and the Western Australia initiatives. Prices immediately shot up by the amount of the difference. And all it does, it creates a bigger gradient for those who follow on. But of course, you've got to understand, Edwin, I'm sure you do, this is nothing to do with helping people to own their own homes. It's all about the political gesturing. It's all about the positioning to win votes. And of course, now Kamala's no different. She needs votes. And this sounds like a good way of getting young people to say, oh, we'll vote for you. But just to be clear, first owner grants are actually not helpful in terms of helping to control prices. Helps developers, of course. It gives them a little bit more money to play with. It helps those people who already own properties because they can sell them for a little bit more as they want to. But it doesn't solve the fundamental structural issue that we've got. And 20 or 30 years experience here in Australia. Message to the US: come and look and see how bad it was here. Look at how excessive our house prices are.
Yeah, look, I'm just proud of Australia because we're leading the way. And as they say, Martin, it's at the end of the day, how do you like them apples, or is it how do you like that apple pie, as they might say it over there in the US?
Well,
and
It should be apple pie, but no, it's a bit crazy. But again, you've got to understand that politics is all about sounding as though you're going to be doing things and trying to actually get people to vote for you. It's nothing to do necessarily with what's right long term for the country. And all of the wrong turns that we've taken here in Australia to effectively put house prices out of reach for the majority of people. Guess what? Other people are now doing it in other places around the world too. But we're first. We're the champions. Yay!
Well, that's why we're going for gold. We are going for gold, Martin. That's why you got to. You're just jealous because you've gone back over to to that funny country of yours.
Can't compete. But talking about competing, there's another competition that I think we should talk about, and that's one in Parramatta, right? The question is, how many flood signs can you find walking down Parramatta High Street these days?
Look, it's interesting to see the flood signs outside of high-rise developments. I mean, it's like you said, nothing to see here. Just keep walk along. I mean, what is the message? I mean, I posted that. I was just walking around Parramatta and looking at the high-rise there on the weekend, and it's interesting to see that you've got if the viewers look at my X feed or my Twitter feed, they'll see it there, and they'll see the video where there's where that building there that's showing on that snapshot there. It actually has a 2 meter level flood potential measurement of 2 meters, which goes right up to the lobby. The good thing is, Martin, is that according to the 2 meter level, it's not going to go past the lobby. But forget about your car in the basement or those in the other basements for the buildings around. And this is on higher ground too, by the way. This is just off Hassel Street, so this building actually sits a bit higher than all the ones closer to the river. But but let's not forget, Martin, it's a 1 in 100 flood zone, right? So, but if we count the 2015 flood when Parramatta River ran its banks, that's a video that you're showing there now. That's the 20 shot from the 2015 flood, and then if you count the 2020, which unfortunately I got there to I wasn't around at the time. I was, I think, a day after where the actual water levels breached that perimeter wall that's around that building under construction there, and actually toppled the safety fencing around it. So it was even higher than the 2015. And that's the flagpole there of Les Miserables. So it was a miserable weekend for the developers of that project, let me say. It's so therefore, according to my mathematics, it's we should rezone Parramatta CBD. We should rezone it to 1 in 50 because we've had two in the last 8 or so years, Martin. So who knows? Next year it might happen again, and then we could bring those odds down. So it's expect one every 5 years, perhaps. But we keep on building these high-rise developments around floodplains. You only have to look at where all the high-rises are built, where we've basically around Zetland and all these areas. They were old marshes, flood zones, riverbeds, grazing grounds. Your parts of Arncliffe, where Liverpool, behind Liverpool Station. My God, that's another catastrophe waiting to happen. I mean, that whole area there. It's and not to mention roads and Homebush, the Homebush precinct, the Olympic side where you got Triggerboff building 5 high-rise developments there. The question there is more not so much the flooding or or the swamp that's being reclaimed, all those swamp areas, but it's all the toxic reports that went missing in the early 2000s, where all these high-rise developments with basements have been built. You'd be a fool if you spent more than half an hour in the basement. You probably the fumes will get you. But I mean, there's so much that's being literally buried and hidden from the general public. But we know these things because obviously we've been in the game for a very long time. And as I said, and I've reported before on the show on many occasions in the past, where before 2000. The contracts for sale of land in the Humbush Bay area and all those the roads area and in what used to be known as Meadowbanks, Meadowbank area, the report, the property, the contract of sale of land would have been about the equivalent of about 35, 40 pages with an attached document of your contamination report of about 250 pages. And then that contamination report on the second round seemed to disappear. You don't get them anymore. It's they got fixed up. It got fixed up with a lot of brown paper bags at that time because we didn't have recycled Aldi bags, but so back then we could still use brown paper bags.
Well, it's amazing how effective brown paper bags can be in terms of hiding things and keeping things, below the waterline, out of sight. It greases the wheels, and that is until things go wrong, right? And then you discover that, hang on a moment, I've got a big flood in my basement, and there's some toxics of various sorts leaking out, and then of course you've got all the construction issues as well. It's a crazy one, but nevertheless, rejoice, Edwin, because actually now prices in Perth are commanding $1 million plus, thanks to explosive price growth. In this financial year, house prices have grown in Perth, and they've accelerated to 18.8% up. And they're celebrating another 30 suburbs added to the city's $1 million club, including Midland suburbs such as Murdoch, Bull Creek and West Swan and Oakford. And of course, Edwin, as always, the concept of the $1 million property, guess what? It was the old WeChat chatterers who've been on this already, right? They're already highlighting the story of the $1 million homes. They're on the case already.
That's right. They're on the case already. The chatter this week amongst them is in the Sydney region predominantly is the one that we follow, or Dusty and Evan follow. Avidly follow the chats there, and really talking about the report from Domain where they're talking about parts of the Sydney region and also the further north of the actual Sydney region. The three areas in the Sydney region, two in Sydney region and one on the upper Sydney region is where the average home price is only a little bit lower than the $1 million mark. So you've got your southwest region that sits on average at 945,000. These are for freestanding homes, right? The outer west Blue Mountains region sits at 930,000 on average, and the Central Coast sits on 910,000. But remember, Martin, what we said, what I said about 6-8 weeks ago. And we spoke on the show, and we said that very soon there won't be a suburb in the Sydney region, according to Domain, that will have freestanding home values less than $1 million, and that is all because of the government policies with regards to migration. Obviously, that's really jacked the prices up and it's kept that stoked the fire a lot. We're not building. the costs of construction. We've been talking about, or the government's been talking about building these elusive $1.2 million homes, and I think the target for this year, according to our mates in HIA, they're not even going to get to 95,000 dwellings built, and that's and that's not in the Sydney region. That's across Australia. So this is where you and I say that there are a lot of announceables and there are a lot of committees that are being formed to absorb all the money that's meant to be going to assisting solving the housing crisis that we're under by way of rental properties or by way of properties suitable for first-time buyers and the young families that want to start a life of longevity and security and peaceful enjoyment of a roof over their heads. But it's not going to happen because there's too much BS and there's more spent on committees and think groups and think tanks and $400,000 superannuation or per annum. I think Albert gave himself, there was something floating around, could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is on the retirement. But nothing's really substantive is really being done, apart from the 12 or 18 townhouses that got built in the Central Coast that Mings was jumping up and down and beating his chest over not too long ago. But the reality is, Martin, is that that dream is becoming further and further from realising, and as I've been saying for many years, for close on to a decade and a half, the Australian dream has become a nightmare for a lot of people. But the WeChat chatters are onto it. But then obviously we follow them because they are setting the pace in buying property, but they in the Sydney region, and they do influence a lot of the markets by way of price shifts. Followed closely by the silent tigers and the new kids on the block in the affluent areas. But yet more is coming, Martin. This is the sad part. More is coming. We got caught up, or the government's caught up in all the arguments about policy and that, and it's now over 2 years, and nothing substantive has been done. In the meantime, apart from the chatter around the $1 million average home price, that there's not going to be a suburb in Sydney that's going to sit under that very shortly. But under that, a similar government in your government, seems to be creating a lot of stir with the chatterers, amongst the chatterers, and the extended groups there in the UK, because there's a lot of chatter from all those those wealthy Hongkonese that went over from Hong Kong over to England and parked themselves there because they thought they were going to have peaceful enjoyment of life and so forth, and it suited them for one reason or another, suited them to go to the UK. But now with all this upheaval, Martin, there's a lot of chatter about the honkies that migrated to the UK, looking at a pathway into Australia. And let's not forget, there's a lot of very, let's say easy, let's call it fast track pathways of obtaining PR, particularly from England, into Australia. If you've got some sort of a medical profession, to the point you can go from your brain surgeon to your heart specialist, right down to masseurs, and even masseurs with happy ending and a lap dance can also come under that category and have got a fast track of PR. But apart from the honkies that went to the UK, let's not forget that you've also got your Indian community there, that your affluent Indian communities, your Pakistani communities, again, the affluent, wealthy, that want that they don't feel safe, and lo and behold, we also got your expats that are no doubt looking at coming back home, and as I've been saying with the expats and the number of these other groups, they're not going to be parking themselves in Campbelltown, and they're not going to be parking themselves out in Penrith. They're going to be going into your North Shores, into your eastern suburbs, where a lot of those houses are going to be once again supported. Although we've seen some of the upper price levels pulling back a little bit, but when you've got these new money coming in or money coming back into Australia, where they're going to be supported and continue to run even higher. I mean, there's a block of land currently under that I know of in Maroubra, 320 square meters. It's got a knockdown dwelling on it. It's uninhabitable. You've got two builders and a local that are fighting for the block of land, and the bid is up to 2.9 million. All right, the owner will let it go at 3 million for a 320 square meter block of land in Maroubra. That's the tail end of the eastern suburbs. For many, and that's it. That's probably now to build a house of your dreams. Let's say it's going to cost you. You're not going to get much change out of $1.2 million, especially if you bought the block at 3 million. Plus your stamp duty, that's 150,000. Build cost 1.2 million. So you're already up to let's say 4.3 million. And if you're a developer, even if you built the house just on around $1 million, you still want to make a profit, substantial profit. So the expected sale price of a new dwelling there, you'd want to get close to the 5 million in order to pay all your the GST, pay all your capital gains tax, pay all those imposts along the way, and satisfy the bank criteria for your borrowing. You'd want to get close to the 5 million. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at. So this is, and yet the locals have got to compete with all this, Martin. So where do you go? You've got to go west, south, northwest, west, and southwest. And as we've said, 2.5 months ago, I made that prediction that there's not going to be a suburb in Sydney under $1 million for a freestanding house, and we're getting closer to it than what we think.
Well, yes, you can see the consequences of bad policy over the last 2 or 3 decades coming through in all sorts of ways. Lack of first home buyers being able to get in, property prices accelerating and spiraling away, high migration driving up demand. But here's another data point just to show how nuts this is. This is actually talking about the other end of the spectrum, so older households. And in fact, this article suggests that census figures show that home ownership among those aged between 50 and 54 fell to 72% in 2021 after peaking at 80% in 2001. So it's not just as those coming into the market for the first time, they're actually being impacted by some of these things. But now there are more people going into retirement not owning property or owning property with a big mortgage. And as this article highlights, it's a real problem. If in fact you are going to retirement without a home to live in, then you are committed to paying rent into the future. And of course, rents continue to skyrocket. And so the net consequences of all this is you've got yet more people who are being caught by these bad policies. We can only come back to conclude once again that the policy decisions that are being taken, both at a state and a federal level, are not necessarily to benefit people. They're clearly to benefit the political machine, right? Which is about getting re-elected, and that's about it. But I thought that was quite an interesting observation. There's another tack here as well, which is quite fascinating when you start looking at it in detail, because there is now some sense that in some places maybe, just maybe, rents are actually coming off the boil. So this is an article that says that the worst might be over for rentals up in Queensland. There's about 236 suburbs in Queensland that have seen a slight drop in rental over the recent times. So you wonder whether the bubble is beginning to burst or not. But I have to tell you that based on what you saw when you were up there, the fact that rents are finally dropping, tenants are still hurting is probably part of the story. But there's a bigger story, right? You went to, I think it was Logan, right, which is an area that I know quite well. The reason I know it, Edwin, is because Logan actually figures quite often on my stress charts, right? But you've there now been on the ground and, well, you saw some interesting stuff, didn't you, while you were there?
Yeah, well, this is for Dusty's predictions, right? Look, going back a step, Martin, to one of your points, your earlier point with regards to the rents going down in some of the regions of Queensland. I didn't read the article. I don't know much about it, but I'm going to make an educated guess, and I'm going to say that it's because there are regional towns that are actually you're getting a lot of people migrating into the city regions because there is no work. I believe that the regional areas, the outer regional areas of New South Wales, Queensland, and Victoria has been and continue to be decimated because of the banking policies. Again, I know I sound like a broken record, but the sort of stuff that you and our friend from Victoria talk about with the closure of financial institutions and how that impacts a lot of the regional towns. So that would be my guess on face value without having read the article and doing a bit of a deep dive into the regions, because it's a mirror of what is happening here in New South Wales. And again, all because of bad policy, state government bad policy. And that was my 2 cents worth for your previous point. Now moving back to the current point on hand is Dusty's predictions. As I say, Dusty's predictions, and the signs are always there, and these are the signs. And the Dusty's prediction for this week is there will be a bloodbath in Logan Central and Woodridge, which is your 4114 postcode for Brisbane, and it's because of what you see in part. Again, I'd encourage our viewers and followers to go to my X feed and Twitter feed so that they can see a little bit in more detail the photos of some of the complexes there. This area historically, a lot of Japanese bought a lot of these complexes, back in the 90s, and they were built for what many were calling back then the invasion of the Japanese investors, and they were buying them from memory anywhere between 135 to 150,000, and then when the market pulled back, obviously then they were just in the early 2000s or before then, that you could pick them up for 60, 70,000 or 55 to 65,000. And some of my family members bought some of these at that time, and then they went back up in price. Now they're sitting on average around between your 380 and 450,000 for the townhouses. But what I saw, Martin, from the inspection of these blocks and in some of the individual homes in many of these blocks, and driving around that area, was absolutely alarming. The state and condition that these complexes and the individual townhouses were maintained, badly badly managed from a strata point of view, from the common area point of view, and also badly managed by property managers. So that's why Dusty's predictions, and Dusty is predicting an absolute bloodbath very soon, because they are tightening the regulations around the minimum standard code for rental properties. Because I can tell you, Martin, from our just visual and superficial inspection of the complexes on the outside, but having also entered, I think we went into 6 or 7 individual units whilst we were there. We had very limited time. I would say that a lot of these complexes would fail miserably. But as is, they sit between your 380,000 to 450,000 as is. So then I was, we sort of shooting the breeze or chewing the cud or just talking out loud, as you do whilst you're in between and having lunch. And we're talking with the group, and we started running some numbers. So if you could get 400,000 for one of these townhouses, dilapidated townhouse, even if you put in 5,000 to tidy it up, guess what, Martin? You're still going to get 400,000. If you put in $20,000 or $30,000, you did up the kitchen and the bathroom, you're still going to get 400,000 at the end of the day, right? Why? Because of the common areas and the external dilapidation of the property. So no matter what you did on the inside, obviously it's going to sell a little bit quicker. Yeah, look, you might get you're overcapitalizing, right, in your expenditure. So if you're getting as is 400, you just sell it as is for 400, and you walk away before the deluge of listings come on market in those areas. So it's a fascinating point. It's a fascinating area from that point of view, because I could not make heads or tail. So then I obviously always like to go back to land value, lot value as a development site. So if you would need to buy this complex, any one of the complexes, you would need to buy the complex on a per lot value, in other words, land value, to rebuild these. They were shabbily built in the 90s, and the materials are absolutely atrocious that they used. And you would have to buy, you couldn't pay more than 150,000 per lot on a land value. But you know what, Martin? In my opinion, my honest opinion, under the minimum standard code, 60% of these blocks should be demolished.
Mm.
I'm flabbergasted by the state and condition, and I feel and I believe that the only reason why the authorities or the powers to be, in Queensland, haven't gone harder on these in this area is because there's nothing else to rent. Now, the freestanding homes, obviously, you're not relying on your neighbour to fix up their shit for you to, it's your own block of land and everything. But even they're so dilapidated, and most of them, I dare say that you're sitting on about anywhere between 75 to 85% of owners in the 4114 postcode there would be investors, and the majority of them would be interstate investors that have hardly ever see the complex. Like I said, the property managers are absolutely hopeless. The strata managers are nowhere to be seen. The alarming thing, Martin, and hope you're sitting down and hold on to your toupee, because it gets worse, mate. It gets worse. I haven't even brought out the big guns yet. The alarming thing is they've got a strata, like that. They run strata weird. I mean, Queenslanders are weird by nature. I mean, if you think Victorians are weird, Queenslanders go the extra mile, right? But at least the Queenslanders are fun weird, and more jolly than your Victorians. Not to say that New South people are any better, really. We're all the same. But all jokes aside, they've got two types of strata. There's one strata that actually looks after, like it mirrors the New South Wales strata scheme, where it takes care of all the common areas, takes care of anything outside, literally from your internal gyprock to the walls, to the outside and roof and so forth, is deemed to be a common area. So everybody chips in and you maintain it, right? And obviously, in my opinion, that runs a hell of a lot better. That strata scheme runs a lot better. But most of these complexes run on a weird strata scheme where each individual lot owner takes care of their property internally and externally, and the strata only takes care of your driveways or certain common roofs, to the point where if it's your townhouse and the gutters have gone to the proverbial poop, you've got to replace it yourself. And hence the reason why you see there in those images, you see townhouses there with no gutters, because they haven't bothered to put them back up. And you've actually got a tree, and apparently the neighbour of that townhouse with that branch fallen on, that tree branch has been on that roof for over a year. And the gutter is so rusted out that it's got to be replaced. So you got these disputes as to some owners wanting to fix things, others not wanting to fix things. It's a mess. It is really, really messed up there, Martin. And it's a watch this space. It's only a matter of time before owners and investors wake up. So this is the pièce de résistance for me, right? Let's make the assumption that there's 1,000 rental properties in your 4114 postcode. Currently, there's, in the 4114 postcode, I think currently there's 4 or 7 properties for sale, right? 3 months ago, the property managers or the selling agents that we spoke to on our excursion were telling us that 3 months ago, you would get anywhere between 15 to 23 groups of people attend the open house inspections, and you would have a lot of buyers in that. And the majority of the people who are buying them are first-time buyers because of your low price point. Now they're averaging between 8 and 12 groups, of which they're getting 2 offers, and it takes a bit longer to sell. And the stock numbers have gone from three to around about 7 for sale of your townhouses. Now, if you've got 1,000 townhouses, 1,000 people owning 1,000 homes, individual homes, and 10%, so 1% of that 1,000 decided, shit, I'm going to get out, that will more than double the amount of properties on market in that postcode. So if you went from 23 to say to 10 groups, that's going to put more stock on market. Obviously, a lot more competition for sellers, more choice for buyers, and it's a watch this space. Watch the dial go down. The price points start to creep down. That's only 1% of the 1,000, Martin. Now, I have a guess. I reached out to some of my colleagues there, and I'm waiting for their answer. But I have a guess. There's about 7,000, 7 to 10,000, and so now 1% of 7 to 10,000. Do the math. But when there's a run, when people start panicking, when the minimum standard code really starts biting, there'll be a run, there'll be a panic. In my opinion, anywhere between 20 to 30% of investors will panic, and they will dump the properties on the market, and it'll be interesting to see how low the prices go. So going back to my original point, the lot prices, in my view, the land value is 150,000. because of the cost to rebuild these things. That you'll do it a lot cheaper than what you will here in New South Wales, but you're still going to be paying a fair bit. You're still going to be paying around 300,000 to build as a developer. Let's say 250 to 300, and that'll be very, very much on the cheap. And so it's going to be an interesting scenario. And I was trying to compare, or perhaps you've got you will have a better idea as to what other part or other capital city would have a region like this. I was trying to think of anywhere. I mean, Mount Druitt looks like Dubai in comparison to this area, in my opinion. Even Raby looks like Singapore in comparison to this area. But you might have some other ideas. You might have some other parts where your surveys reach, and that would be interesting. Or our viewers may have some points as to what other city areas would be like this. And as I say, so what are they worth right now? If you can get out, you get out.
Yeah, well, there are places in my surveys that I'm seeing. In fact, I released a show over the weekend. You asked, we answered, more households in financial stress. And that actually was looking at individual postcodes. And one of the ones I looked at was actually on the Gold Coast and covered this sort of area. And, what you saw was high levels of stress, rental stress, and also mortgage stress. A lot of issues with households who've really got major financial pressures. But the same point, a lot of investors have bought into these areas without understanding what they've bought into. And, there are a few others that I could point to. Donnybrook down in Melbourne Way might be quite an interesting one to look at, or even some of those, the other side of the Dandenongs. Again, some of beyond Dandenong. Again, a lot of stuff that was done some years ago, relatively poorly built, and now under significant pressure. I would say that the lot sizes where you're looking at in Logan are somewhat smaller, but of course now subdivision is happening in lots of places. But it is really interesting to see that some of the pressures now are getting to the point where those investors are actually looking to quit. And again, if you look at the listings, a lot of ex-investment properties are coming on. A lot of net investment yields, even up in Queensland, are underwater. So people are losing money on a cash flow basis. That's why they don't invest in looking after the properties. And now they're trying to get out. So I think this will be an interesting turning point in the market for some areas. But of course, there's still high demand in others. So it's always going to be a matter of going granular and looking at the individual locales and seeing what's going on. But 4114 is clearly one to watch, Edwin.
Yeah, look, and you cross the highway and it's chalk and cheese. You cross the highway and the houses are cleaner. Obviously, then you got the general idea, in the strata complexes are a lot neater and better looked after, and they're but they also fetch much higher price. The price points there are in your 550s, and your homes jump up a couple of $100,000 in value as well. And literally by crossing the road, it's the same. It's the same or very, very similar. Design and build, but just better looked after. But and I think in some of the city regions, we're going to see this. We're going to see these areas fundamentally. I go back to also. I made it a point to spend a bit of time in our breaks in the local shopping precincts for these areas. I always make it a point, because then you get to observe the nature of the demographics, and it's very interesting as well. And then you start looking at the historical transformation of the area as to the shifts from in nationalities or backgrounds from over the decades, and you start to see how things flow. And but there's nothing more clearer whether it's and it happens all over in all of the states. It's just goes back to the government policy where they just basically, yep, that looks like a great spot. Let's bring in the migrants and let's just dump them in this area, or dump them here, dump them there. But that whole thing, not in the NIMBYs were really first came about with the actual politicians themselves that didn't want them in there. Didn't want historically migrants that they would consider for lack of a better representation or a description, would consider a lower class than what they were. But this stems back from the politicians, whether it be the Libs or the Labs or those that pull the strings. And hence the reason why I say that looking at Sydney, where is our backyard, is you've got areas which are highly polarized. Our saving grace, Martin, is the fact that the polarization that we're seeing with the ethnicity of the groups that we're creating this inner hubs within the Sydney region. Doing it for educational purposes as well as to allow the older generation that can't that can't live outside of an area where they're not able to speak in the native language, because it becomes hard. And it all goes back to what you did with the point that you raised earlier on, and something that we raised last week. It is very, very expensive to grow old in Sydney and the Sydney regions, because you don't have the support structure, and a lot of the migrants, the older migrants that didn't pick up English quite well, and are still speak very little to no English. They can't get by unless they're in a community that understands them, and it's very, very difficult. And for a lot of them, it's very daunting and scary.
Spot on. Yeah, there's very important dynamics here that many, I think, politicians in particular don't want to understand. Let's move the conversation forward a little bit, Edwin, because you've got a little bit of update on the market sentiment. You know, as you sort of ring around and talk to people, you get some quite interesting stories. So, what have you found this week?
Well, this is a follow-up from last week. Because remember that there was a lot of hype around the interest rate rises and what people were doing, and the discussion that we had the previous week as to what would people do if rates went up, or what would people do if they stayed, or what would people do if they dropped. And I said on the three occasions, people are just going to buy. They're sick of waiting. So you're going to, it would just depend on, there might be a variation in price and where they're looking. So we started to take snapshots of the four areas. In the four areas, although we talked to a lot more agencies and agents, I started taking a snapshot of the most prominent agents or agencies in those areas to give us a better understanding, a better snapshot. So this is agencies that hold from 8 to 25 open house inspections on a Saturday and conduct auctions. So we went to the Northwest region the week after the rate hold. Things moved in the Northwest region. The momentum picked up a bit. So I reached out again yesterday, and on Saturday I reached out to the guys, and the principal this time said same as last week, a little bit better, but it's settled down, not like 3 to 6 months ago. But the point is that the momentum is picking up again. There's because of we're talking properties on average around your 2 to 2.5 million entry point in the Northwest region now. But it's better than before the call, the August call for the RBA. The eastern suburbs, same old, because the market there, in a way, it's and this particular agency handles a lot of apartments as well, so they brought it all into the mix. Houses are still very well attended. Apartments not as much, but there's still demand there. But and you got a very, very high price point. It's not, but until the new influx of migrants or expats coming back into Australia that we're going to see the eastern suburbs, in my opinion, start climbing back up, and it will. It will. Don't stone me. It's because of everything else. Because we're not. There's just not enough being built to the demand that's going to be created because of all the upheaval and all the geopolitical stuff that's happening outside of our region. And we're just the flavour of the month, if not the year. Your Bankstown and Lidcombe, Auburn areas, Maryland's areas. Remember last week, one of the principal auctioneers in that office that I speak with, he said that he was trying to pull bids, was like trying to pull teeth from a chicken. and it's something that nobody wanted to move. It was, in my opinion, it was early days. But now, last week, 2 weeks after the call, we've got three. He held 3 auctions himself, and he had 3 to 9 registered bidders at each auction this time, whereas previously he had 3 auctions as well, and nobody turned up to one of them or so, and the other 2 auctions that got sold below the reserve. This time around, there's 3 to 9 registered bidders. So this is grassroots level, on the ground, market sentiment changing, and you could see it on a week by week basis. So I wrote back and I said, a dramatic change from last week's results. What are the office of sales guys saying? More confidence, and said buyers still not falling over themselves to bid. Getting buyers to bid is still keen to pulling teeth out. But then I said, but they're paying the dollars nonetheless. So they are starting to come out. So your private treaty campaigns still a bit more argy-bargy, but people are paying more, and seems like because again the different price point that they're wanting to come in, because now there's with the chatter of talks of potential watch the mainstream is going to start pushing potential interest rate cuts. So then it's only going to really pump the market again because of your spring selling season, where we see a lot more numbers on market, so they've got to counter that. And then you've got your west, your west region, your Blacktown LGA, again same agent. He's seeing more activity. He finds it strange. I don't, because again, your price point. And if they were spooked with rate rises 2 weeks ago, that sentiment has changed, and there are parts of the Blacktown LGA that are still sitting under the million, but they won't be there for too much longer. And again, because of the silent tigers are just leading the charge there. But you've also got your other interest from your Chinese investors that they want to buy homes at a low price point, where then they can add they can twig it, put in $150,000 to the home, twig it, and then rent out a 3-bedroom home, turn it into a 7-bedroom home, and rent out each room, and get the return by budget accommodation scenario. So that's the market sentiment as we've been seeing it. And again, these are 4 big offices in each of those regions to give our viewers and followers a snapshot of what's happening week by week.
Yeah, very interesting, Edwin, and it shows you how the dynamics do change. And I think that's one of the things that the high-level property price summaries, etc., miss completely, those on-the-ground dynamics. The other point is just looking at the numbers, I guess, as we come towards the end of the show. So in Sydney, on the 12th of August, 17,522 properties listed for sale. Jump forward to the 19th, 17,650, so a slight rise. And again, it's worth noting that the charting that you've got here shows that compared to last year, we are still seeing a slight rise, although actually the overall listings numbers relative to demand is still pretty weak, isn't it?
Very weak, Martin. And let's not forget that 400 of those extra listings. So currently we're running about 15, 1,600 more properties on market than what we had same time last year. And they will climb as we move into spring. But 400 of those are land lots that are also counted in the numbers, and another 500 apartments because as complexes are finished, obviously they're going to come on the market. So it's but yeah, relative to the demand market, we really need to have the same numbers as Victoria in order to really make an impact. If we still track, let's say, 2, even 3,000 more listings on market, there'll be a media write-ups as to the so-called deluge. But as I keep on saying over and over again, even mortgagee sales are getting much better result than what the banks expect, and there's still the poor bastards that the properties being repossessed from. They're still walking away with some money in their pocket because of the nature of the demand. And there's, in my opinion, and from what we're seeing from the WeChat chatterers and the other groups that we talk to, the influencers in other groups in other areas, different industries, but we get inside information from them, from the silent tigers and that, and also now we're talking to a Indonesian group as well, or in the eastern suburbs. It's there's a lot more money coming into that's going to be coming into Australia because of our border policies, immigration policies, because we just, the government needs that fix, needs that stamp duty fix, needs that land tax fix. Otherwise it can't sustain, and how can it sustain the political wages and the retirement pots of gold that they retire with, Martin? There's no other thing but that, and when you've got the fears of your natural resources going down in value because of what's happening in China, well, what's the alternative but stamp duty and land tax, right?
Well, let's look at the iron ore price. Rand Chalmers is now warning of a $3 billion budget hit on the iron ore slump. And of course, we're now getting to the point where the Treasury's modelling of iron ore prices is more positive than we're actually seeing the market moving to. So they're going to look for all the levers, aren't they, to try and find ways to put the finger in the dike. And of course, taxes will continue to rise because the tax bands will continue to be frozen. They will be pumping people into the country because, of course, they know that if they do that, they can get a bit of economic activity. And so things like high migration, all those things will definitely be in vogue now. And the weaker that China becomes in terms of economic demand for our resources, the more then the Treasury has a problem. And of course, they'll reach for the old favourites. I'm waiting for the next first-time buyer incentives to touch on what we spoke about before. It'll be coming. It'll be coming. Let's just briefly look at Melbourne. So on the 12th, we had 27,243. Jump forward to the 19th, 27,642. So once again, we're continuing to see the rise and, of course, more properties in Melbourne. One of the reasons why Melbourne property prices continue to be eroded relative to growth we're seeing elsewhere. Last year, 23,282 in August last year, compared with 27,642. So you can see there's quite a considerable difference relative to last year.
Yeah, and that's what we called. We called it. You and I called it. We saw it. And the WeChat chatterers warned us about it. We called it on the show. We were what, 3-4 months ahead of the curve because they are a force to be reckoned with, and hence the reason why our followers and our viewers get the insights into into the different markets, and they don't. They take they're a lot more cautious with the Sydney landscape if they're looking into the Sydney areas, and they go in there with eyes wide open as opposed to eyes wide shut.
Mm. And this explains the dynamics. So if you look at the average capital city house prices, this is from AMP, you can see there that Perth is leading the charge at the top, and guess who's dragging the chain at the bottom? Melbourne, right? So you can see how the data translates specifically into changes in dynamics in terms of price movements and sales listings, all of those things. So it's good to join the dots between the policies. We talked about the policies already quite a bit tonight, so I won't go through that again. But it translates into dynamics that really are seen in the market. And, no surprise then what we get. No surprise then that perhaps you'd be surprised not to see Brisbane is still hanging around 3,620 on the 12th and jump forward to 3,572. So a very different story in the Brisbane market at the moment. And I'm still seeing strong migration from Interstate to Brisbane. I'm seeing quite a lot of interest in investors buying in the Brisbane area, particularly because of the high yields relative to Melbourne or indeed Sydney. But as we said earlier on, a lot of investors are making considerably bad mistakes in terms of what they're buying. And just on the auction story, Edwin, it's same old, really, isn't it?
Yeah, same old, same old. And I looked at the numbers for same week last year, and they were almost identical. I think last year they were closer to 800 and something. Melbourne were around 1,000 or so. So yeah, look, people are still. I think the cost of transaction is what's keeping the actual auction numbers down in many cases, that people aren't aware, and they get duped into paying twice as much for an auction campaign than for a private treaty campaign, and it's the same bloody thing, except you pay anywhere between $800 to $1,200 for an auctioneer on the day. And whilst we're on it, I was actually shout out to Robert Skiing, an old mate of mine. I was chatting with him, caught up with him after a few years being away, or not touching base. He's a Sydney auctioneer, and he's the type of auctioneer that you want to get, because a lot of the auctioneers that are out there, that they charge you the $800, $1,200 to conduct the auction on the day, and they don't look at the dwelling, your property, till the actual day of the auction, where they're busy running around conducting 5, 6, 10 other auctions, and having to commute through all the peak hour traffic of the Saturday, and they're meant to give you the best result on the day. I don't think so. But Rob's the type of auctioneer that you do want on your side. If you do go through an auction campaign and your agent says, "Hey, we need to use an auctioneer," just tell them, you want to use Rob Skeen, and his because he'll make a point to view that your property days before the actual auction, so he can get himself familiar, which is how it should be. Now just turn up on the day and say, jibbity and jabbity, and then put your hand out and where's my $1,200? Thank you very much. I got to go to the next one. No, that's what you need. So that's a plug for Rob.
No, very good, and it's just amazing to see the difference, the quality of the auctioneer from those who actually do the homework beforehand and then come along armed and prepared, and those who frankly make it up on the fly and they just see it as just a pure transaction and they just take the cash and then run. So very big and important difference, because you get quite different outcomes in those two things. We'll just briefly touch on the rents. Not a lot of movement really, as perhaps you'd expect at this time of year. In Sydney last week, 12,772, 12,554. So a slight fall in rental listings, whereas in Melbourne, 10,807 last week and 10,815 this, so hardly any movement. Interesting couple of observations. One or two people have been suggesting that maybe the vacancy rates are beginning to move up slightly, not seeing much evidence of that. The rentals themselves are quite variable, so I'm not seeing a massive trend in terms of significant cuts in rents, despite some of the media to the contrary. And the third point, just quickly on the clearances, the clearance rates were a bit lower this week, but don't get too excited about that because these are pretty Mickey Mouse numbers anyway. So I never worry too much about any of those numbers. The concrete stuff we're talking about here really, really can make the difference, Edwin, can't it? And as we come to the end of the show, a quick tip, which sort of links back to what you saw in Logan, I think.
Yeah, it was scary just to see how gutters can crumble away, particularly the older type gutters that, the old, very, very, very flimsy gutters that they use in Queensland, and they deteriorate very quickly. But look, we're coming up to a season now where you can, it's going to not too hot. And the rain seemed to be pulled back a bit now. It's a good time to jump on get somebody. Don't do it yourself if you can't manage it, but to clean the gutters. I get a feeling. I was just talking to Dusty, and we get a feeling that this is going to be a very dry, hot summer. I'm sort of almost expecting. A big bushfire going through the mountains. That's just me. That's just me. Not I haven't gone and checked my crystal ball yet. But for now, I'm just sensing that, or it might be the tequila that I had before the podcast, like the spirits that Kamala Harris has before her speeches. But yeah, look, time to clean those gutters, and you should do it on a regular basis if you want these things to for safety. The other thing that also, Martin, the other reason why I was thinking about that is because insurances are clamping down on the maintenance of homes because they don't want to pay out, and they will look at any type of excuse not to pay an insurance policy out to its fullest, if they can prove that you didn't maintain your property well, and this is the biggest, one of the biggest causes of, one of the many causes of why houses catch on fire is because all the debris in the gutters in summer, all the leaves and twigs and everything, small branches that fall from trees. Just that's where the fire starts and spreads through the roof, and there you go. So be aware of this, and take advantage of the mild spring early spring that we've got, and get it done early, and get it done earlier because it's getting very, very costly to get laborers to do that. They're charging a mozzo in some areas because of the height of the gutters or the roofs.
Yeah, well, they're charging a mozzo because there's a lot of people who can't do it themselves, need help, and of course the hourly wage rates are through the roof, literally in some cases. Well, Edwin, I think that's a very, very important piece of advice too. Thank you very much, as always, for sharing your thoughts with us on this Monday. It'll be an interesting week. I think looking to the US over the week will be quite fascinating, and I think looking into the spring season, all the sense I have is we're going to see a somewhat rise in listings, but not a dramatic rise. And in many cases, I think as a result of that, we're going to see prices still hanging on. But again, it's important to go granular, as we often say, and not everything is going the same way at the same time as you compare Queensland with Victoria, or look at Sydney, and even parts of Sydney are going all over the place. So as always, great talk, and we'll do it again, I guess, next week, Edwin.
Oh, we certainly will, Martin. And look, if the Democrats are going with the first-time buyers grant, copying us, I reckon the Republicans should go with the joint ventures like we have with our government. I reckon Trump could pull that off. Yeah, he could pull that off. Yeah.
Yes, obviously,
Yeah,
folks over in the US, you should look at Australia and learn, eh?
exactly. Hey, yeah, go all the way. I mean, this is it. We are the leaders in innovative ways to solve the housing crisis, from caravans to tents to. But then again, that you've got that in the US as well. I think the novel idea is what the politicians throw at the people before the election. That's the novel idea. So yeah, if Trump watches our show, yeah, he should start looking into the joint venture agreements, the part ownership from the government arrangements that we have here as well. I mean, could be a winner, could be a landslide on that call, Martin.
Well, there are certainly plenty of strategies that have been used by the politicians on both sides of the aisle in Australia to lift those home prices, all sorts of different ways. And so, message to the US. Look and learn, except, of course, it's not actually worked. House prices are much more expensive relative to incomes in Australia than the US. That, in fact, we've got more people unable to get into the market at the moment and more people, as they age, out of the market and having to rent for the rest of their lives. It's a complete mess. But unfortunately, politicians will serve their own interests rather than the interests of the people. Never been different, has it? Thank you, Edwin. See you next week.
All the best, Martin. Take care.
Cheers. Bye-bye.